How am I supposed to remember something that I have no memory of? How am I supposed to remember something that I may personally have no direct connection to? And as a result of that, do I even have the right to remember that?
I don't know if I should have any moral obligation to remember, or if I should have any moral right to remember more than other people do. But I think if not the right to remember, I have the right to make sure that everyone else remembers, because it would be tragic if the world would forget.
I think remembering is everyone's right. You should be, I think it's not even just a right, it should be everyone's duty to remember. I mean, you should be making a conscious decision to remember everything you can, because without remembering, we lose that part of history.
Our lives are built out of a bunch of memories, so without remembering, we can't really learn and grow as people and as a society.
Respect is very closely tied to remembering, because it's the obligation of those and the duty of those who have caused such a disaster to never forget what happened and never forget what led up to such a disaster.
There's always going to be biases in the world, so of course, when it comes to the topic of remembering, everyone has their own story and their own version of what they remember, so of course, you have to do it in a it's a difficult way, I think, or a difficult process to figure out how to remember.
We should remember through active reflection and through the purpose of understanding what has happened through open dialogue, because if we choose to only remember dates and times and places, we won't get anywhere, because we don't necessarily understand the nature of what happened. Because understanding the nature of what happened is going to be what conditions us to make our decisions for the future.
I think you should remember all things, because even if it's bad or it's good, it doesn't matter, because at the end you always can reassure yourself and you can see what happened and make it better in the future.
Can you ever move on from the genocide against Jews in Germany? I would say no. I don't think there is such thing as moving on. I think that is almost an obligation for the future of humankind to always remember this event.
Remembering is a complex phenomenon. For example, it has to do with justice. Because imagine that something happens to you, like let's imagine somebody would kill you. Do you want it to be remembered or not? Remembering evil is a necessity if you want to improve the society. We remember that even ordinary people were capable of doing evil, and by this we try to prevent it to happen again. Can it happen again? Yes, it can, because the Holocaust was actually made possible by ordinary people who were not more evil than we are.
We have a right to remember as individuals, and we have a duty to remember as a society.
I guess the way we treat others, it's the way we can survive in the world along with all the other races, all the other nationalities, the way we can bond with other people that we have differences with, perhaps cultural differences or different nationality, race, it doesn't matter, so we're still people, so the most important thing is for us to know how to communicate with each other and how to keep that connection as humans.
I think sometimes that guilt can motivate us to do right, and it can force us to look deep within ourselves and ask us, where does this come from, you know? And I think it serves a function, and it's to know what is right and what is wrong in our actions.
Because if we don't, we've lost our understanding of humanity. I mean, that's what makes us human. If we don't remember, we don't really have much at all.
However, I also think that everybody has a right to not remember. If the experiences are too traumatic, if somebody doesn't wish to remember, you mustn't remind them of it. It is up to every one of us to decide whether we want to remember or we don't.
what it means to remember is to convey a story. If it is something that happened, something that you're changing slightly for the idea to pass through, but the story itself has been changed, it means to pass something on. To pass something on so it is preserved for future generations.
Through remembering what they've been through, you pay them a bit of respect for what they've had to experience, if it's especially negative, because they've had to go through a hardship or they've had to go through something which they will be stuck with for the rest of their life. And by remembering that, you sort of pay respect to them.
I found out that my great uncle escaped Sachsenhausen, and with that, I would have never been able to know that if I didn't talk to him and if I didn't talk to the people that I know love me and surround me and share those memories, I would have never known something that has significantly now impacted my life. And that's why I think that with memory and remembrance, we should be sharing those memories with others to remember the history.
It's hard sometimes for some people to cover this topic. We have to accept it and accept this truth and yes, keep on moving forwards. And not be afraid to speak out.